We will take a journey, something extraordinary, to understand the scale of subatomic particles, matter, life, worlds, suns, and the vast universe. Our journey begins on Earth. In a city with crowds of people, and everything around us, like nature, is made of matter. Like animals, water, the air, fire and ice, and the elements, and everything between in the entire cosmos. But matter contains the fundamental building blocks. All of them is atoms. They are very infinitely small, mostly empty space, and they all come to chemical compounds called the molecules. But how small is an atom? If we could use objects that are very small, we have to shrink down very smaller. If we compare objects, then a pinhead, smaller than a human hair, is a grain of salt, and smaller than a grain of salt is a cell that is visible under a microscope, and smaller than the cell is a bacteria, and smaller than is a virus. Is too small to see. A long twisted ladder molecule is the DNA, until we reach a one particular atom. Every atom contains a nucleus. But how small is the nucleus inside the atom? Those subatomic particles swarming around is the electrons. But the nucleus is very small, too invisible to see. That the entire atom is the size of the stadium, its nucleus is the size of a marble. The nucleus all pack into particles called the protons and neutrons. And the atomic nucleus contains all the elementary particles called the quarks. But the atomic element that we will start is hydrogen. The abundant element in the universe is hydrogen. This individual hydrogen atom contains one proton and the orbiting electron. That makes water, or H2O, and the power nuclear fusion. Inside the sun's core, hydrogen atoms smash into each other and fusing into a new element, helium, and converted into energy is nuclear fusion. Yet every star in the universe uses nuclear fusion. A helium atom contains two orbiting electrons, and the atomic nucleus contains two protons and neutrons. An atom is part of the fundamental building blocks of life, is carbon. Inside of the carbon atom, particles like the swarms of 6 electrons, In the center is the atomic nucleus, packed into 12 subatomic particles of protons and neutrons. And the carbon atoms are contained in steel. In molecules, carbon atoms bonded by two red atoms called oxygen, and form a molecule called carbon dioxide, or CO2, has an important role for heat trapping gas in the Earth's atmosphere. And the carbon dioxide is produced by burning fossil fuels and the greenhouse gases. And all carbon are contained in diamonds, making it sparkle. And the carbon atoms, bonded by 4 hydrogen atoms, they become a methane molecule and its natural gas, becoming an explosive ingredient. Another element than carbon is nitrogen. It consists with 21 subatomic particles inside it. And also liquid nitrogen reaches 320 degrees Fahrenheit. It's far colder than dry ice. And the nitrogen atoms, bonded with 3 hydrogen atoms, turn into ammonia molecule. And the oxygen atoms that we breathe in the air. But how these oxygen molecules was created? In plant cells, they absorb water and carbon dioxide into the chloroplast. It contains a green pigment called chlorophyll for making photosynthesis. If the sunlight strikes a chloroplast, water molecules converted into oxygen for life to breathe, and the carbon dioxide converted into glucose in a molecular factory. And the water we drink, and for the oceans, lakes and rivers, transporting ships and boats, and home to any life. It contains a molecule with oxygen atoms bonded by 2 between hydrogen atoms. It has an important role for states of matter. If the temperature drops, the water freezes into ice, and all water molecules stick together. If the temperature rises, the ice will melt into a liquid and molecules keep flowing around. If the temperature rises into 100 degrees, the water will boil into gas. In oceans, the sun warms the water and starts evaporation. And the evaporation forms condensation, is clouds in the air. If the clouds become too heavy, it makes rain, and the evaporated water turns into liquid. Low freezing temperatures will make snow, and the rain transported to oceans, lakes, and rivers. And it happens over time around the planet. So what about other elements of atoms and molecules? The raw materials for the cities contain all heavier atoms, or all contained in metal like silver, gold, aluminum, nickel, and iron. But let's visualize what heavier atoms may look like. In the atomic structure of steel, they are atoms of carbon and iron. But what the nuclei may look like. Inside an iron atom, its atomic nucleus containing too much protons and neutrons, causing the atom to become heavier, and too much swarms of subatomic particles of electrons. And the other heavier atoms are contained in rocks. And the gold, unlike iron, appear yellow, and the lead and aluminum for plastic cans, and nickel and copper contained in coins, and glittering silver. Unlike iron, uranium is radioactive. If neutron meets uranium, they start a chain reaction, unleashing more amounts of energy that power electricity. Unlike metals, what about rocks? Rocks like igneous or magma-cooled rocks that came from the Earth's mantle and burst out of volcanoes. And the sedimentary rock contained in Grand Canyon landscapes formed by mineral and organic particles that rain under the ocean floor. And the metamorphic rocks are rocks that get squeezed and heated. Sulfur are found in volcanic vents. And the crystals that were found in caves contains molecules of silicon and oxygen. And the mineral element calcium helps bones grow. But let's explore biology. The unique planet is suspended in space is Earth. It has an atmosphere with liquid water and land. On its surface, it contains life. Life on this planet flourish, like animals, creatures, and birds, in the ecosystem environment. And the ecosystems of fish and creatures underwater that could survive. And the trees and the plants create photosynthesis. And the tiny creatures like amphibians and insects. And the humans colonize to create civilizations. But all big, small creatures contains tiny building blocks of life. To able to explore, our journey will shrink down into a microscope level inside the body. All creatures are made of tiny building blocks called the cells. In the bloodstream, countless red blood cells are moving around inside the body, able to get oxygen, is pumped by the heart. Among the red blood cells, we encounter a white cell, a lymphocyte. They protect the body from invading microbes and makes antibodies. Our journey will enter the living complex cells. In the tissue, we're entering inside one of those cells' interior. Inside the cell, complex microscopic structures, molecular machines, enzymes, protein factories have its own function. In the cell's heart is the nucleus, which contains all the long strands of a biological blueprint. DNA, a long twisted ladder molecule, have its own instructions of life that tells to move, reproduce, and to manufacture proteins, and to heal. But if the codes in the DNA were wrong, a mutation has occurred, and all the long strands of DNA are copied and wrapped around into shapes as chromosomes. which one cell divide into two. Other cells can divide into tissue for the body's expanding growth. The human body is made of trillions of cells inside. White blood cells engulf bacteria and digested by enzymes inside. In the complex organ, the brain, a complex network of billions of brain cells, has its own function of the body's movement. Each electrical signal passes one brain cell to another brain cell. Every cell inside the body have its own function. Instead of complex multicellular organisms, we're about to explore microscopic life that are swimming there. A massive one-celled amoeba can change their shape when they move. They are parasites, but they are deadly. Smaller than amoeba is a one-celled paramecium. They contain microscopic hairs that ingest any debris. Smaller than the paramecium is a green single-celled algae, and there are countless of them. Long strands of cyanobacteria make photosynthesis, and the microbes, called the bacteria, is around 2 micrometers. These sausage-shaped microbes divide into countless of them. The smallest one, tiny microbes, is too invisible to see, is a virus. It's around 100 nanometers. They infect organisms to manufacture countless of viruses, and they cause illness. Around the globe, every continent on Earth have habitats and biomes, home to biological organisms. In the Amazon, tropical rainforest with vegetation, with tall trees and the plants. And the green landscapes is a grassland. And the desert is made of more cactus. In the north of Africa, surrounding sand landscapes formed by the wind. In every north and south poles of the planet, a wasteland landscapes of ice is a tundra. And near the grassland are lakes and rivers. And the aquatic biome under the oceans have ecosystems of fish and the coral reefs and the other life forms in the oceans. On this blue planet, there are forces of weather and nature. But in the atmosphere, more buildup of clouds or heavier create storms. If massive storm clouds spin rapidly into a whirlpool, they become into hurricanes. A cyclone storm that spins rapidly with raging winds that damage houses and trees and cause flooding. Weather here is extreme, but extreme winds formed a final storm cloud that rotates rapidly is a tornado. Tornadoes wreak havoc and destroy trees and houses, and they cause massive damages. And the bolts of lightning is ignited by the storm. Other forces of nature is the land, and it keeps moving for millions of years by tectonic forces. So let's visualize it. Continents on Earth were moving when they collide and separated apart. But around 200 million years ago, all the continents joined together into a single supercontinent, Pangaea. Then over millions of years, they separated into 7 continents that move into their present positions, controlled by tectonic plates. High landscapes, like mountains, are formed when 2 continents collided and joined together. Like the tallest mountain is Mount Everest, is formed when India collided with Asia. And the islands like Hawaii was formed by volcanic activity underwater that built up layers, building a new land, and it's suspended in the vast ocean. But the tectonic forces of the Earth's crust is controlled inside the planet. Below the thin crust is the mantle, which drive the tectonic forces, volcanoes, and earthquakes. And it's made of molten rock, and it's very hot. And far below is a metallic core, which is made of iron and nickel, which drives the Earth's magnetic field, the invisible shield that protects the planet against solar radiation. But let's see, disasters are driven by tectonic forces. Hot fiery lava that came from the Earth's mantle escapes into the surface and out of the volcano. Some volcanic activities are in Hawaii and Iceland. When volcanoes erupt, they explode and spew out lava and smoke and ash, and they are deadly. But let's witness earthquakes, not just volcanoes. When plates slip past another, the earthquake occurred suddenly. Massive surface shaking damages buildings and structures. Some earthquakes spread around the north and south if it was far enough. But some earthquakes create massive tidal waves. It's a tsunami. When tidal waves move at high speed, they expand. If it was in the city, the tsunami will flood anything in its path. Our journey will begin to continue, not on Earth, when we leave the atmosphere, and we will explore extraordinary things in space, beyond Earth. We will explore the moon, the planets, the stars, out to the most distant galaxies, in the vast cosmos. Before we begin our journey, next time.